Alex here, your VRay guide, and today we're going to talk about VRay Dirt material. This is a really cool option in VRay that adds ambient occlusion to your materials, and by doing that it adds a lot of photorealistic, nice soft shadows and nice soft look to your objects. Okay, so I have here a few examples that I used VRay Dirt in order to enhance my ambient occlusion, so we can see here really nice soft shadows inside those this metal here. Also with this concrete here and connection between the metal and the concrete right here, everything is basically was made by the help of VRay Dirt. And for instance, I'm working on a new scene of linear set right here, and as you see here on those foldings where the objects being connected, we have really cool appearance of ambient occlusion. So basically with VRay Dirt you'll be able to enhance ambient occlusion and add this really nice photorealistic look to your materials. Okay, so let's go to 3D Max, and I have here a pretty much simple scene. I'm going to apply simple VRay material and I'm going to render it. As you see here, no textures, no nothing. We have a little bit of GI distribution, but this is basically it. I have VRay Sky and no lights, just VRay Sky. Okay, so in order to add VRay Dirt, you need to go to your material, diffuse slot, and select your material browser, and here you go in the standard slot of maps. You can select VRay Dirt right here. So by double clicking you'll be able to add it to your diffuse channel, and let's just render it and see what we get. So we can see immediately that we start to get this really cool distribution of ambient occlusion to our material. Okay, so the basic parameters here goes the radius. The more you give it, the broader it's get, the more it spreads along your material. So you can see it goes, it spreads wider. So let's leave it about 10. We have Occluded Color. This is basically the color that your object, that ambient occlusion being distributed. So black is the default. I always like to leave it at the black point, because the soft shadows, they basically gray black, got gray or black appearance. Unoccluded color is the base color, so basically you can play with this one. Let's make it red, for instance, just to give you an example of how this stuff works. So basically we're not going to use those colors, we're going to use textures. Okay, so just to give you a little bit indication about distribution, the higher it goes, basically the lower and accurate it gets. So you can see it gets really accurate. So let's leave it at 1, for instance, and not change these parameters. Basically I'm not changing them at all. Fell off, same here. It goes how wide your ambient occlusion is going to be spread out. So the higher it gets, the less fell off you get. So let's leave it at 0 default settings. Subdiv is something pretty much important, is your quality to your materials, to the distribution of VRay Dirt. So we can see pretty much dots here. If I'm gonna zoom in, we have a lot of kind of grainy look. So this one goes by the numbers of 16 or 32. So basically square, and you can see how accurate it is right now. So the more you get, the more subdivs you put, the more accurate ambient occlusion is going to be. Bias is basically the shifts. You can shift actually your ambient occlusion to different sides on the y-axis. or on a z-axis. As you see here, my ambient occlusion was shifted a little bit to the right, and if I'm gonna put here also 1, and this I'm gonna put back to 0, I'm gonna shift it back to the left. So as you see, you can shift also your ambient occlusion to give it more or less. The Z probably goes up and down. Okay, we have here other different parameters such as alpha. Ignore GI is on by the default because we're using ambient occlusion, and invert normals. We're gonna go through those parameters a little bit later because it's much easier to see when the texture has been applied. So let's go and apply a few textures. So those are the slots that the texture is going to be applied to. So let's just, Uncluded Color is the first texture that I'm going to apply, and let's see how this one works. As you see here, the Uncluded Color is the basic color, is the fundamental color of your object, and we can see we have a little bit of GI, not something serious. Now we have Occluded Color. So basically I prepared a little bit darker texture than the Uncluded. So this is, if this one is the basic texture, you want to have something a little bit darker than the original texture. So your VRay Dirt will actually will be dirt, and we'll use this dark texture. Okay. Radius is basically how your ambient occlusion being distributed. So in the radius, you can put any other texture. You can also use, let's use for instance cellular, and let's turn off our fundamental texture, our base texture, and see how it works. So as you see here, I'm using cellular, so it's pretty much dots, and we can see here it's been controlled by the white, gray, and black. It's a different variation of white, black, and gray color, and we can see that we have those kind of ununiform dots going on. So basically, you can use different maps in order to use distribute this ambient occlusion, the actual dirt in your texture. And let's just bring my dark texture, my dirt texture, to this one and turn both of them on. So as you see here, I have my base texture as a concrete and my dirt texture being distributed by using the cellular option. Cellular texture is the one that controls how my ambient occlusion is going to be seen in this scene. Okay, so we can see in those areas we get really nice ununiform ambient occlusion going on here. I actually can turn off the radius and show you this example. So what it actually will do, it will just distribute on one level without any variation, without anything. It will just be pretty much regular ambient occlusion distribution. However, we can see the dark areas and the GI being enhanced, and we get really nice and natural look to our textures right here. Okay, so let me turn those guys off, and we'll go through another different other options in this with this map. So if I'll put invert normals right here, and I'll be able to render it, we actually flip the entire appearance of VRay Dirt, and ambient occlusion being distributed on the edges right now. Okay, the next option is work with transparency. for that option we actually need to use a glass. So I'm going to duplicate one of my boxes and let me make it glass so you'll be able to see, whoops, how this stuff actually works. So I made here some really thin glass, something like this, and let's make it a little bit thinner and a little bit higher and give it a glass texture, and not that refractive, something like this could work really nice. And let's render and see what we get. So as you see here, we get pretty much not that accurate, but pretty much dirty look for our glass. Let me pull this a little bit in. Now in order to avoid this, we can activate this option, work with transparency, and then we get pretty much accurate look to my glass here. It's pretty cool. Let me just make my glass a little bit darker, something like this, so we'll be able to see much better. Okay, so we can see we have really nice distribution of ambient occlusion along the glass in compared to when this option was off, something like this. As you see here, we get really kind of inaccurate black lines that doesn't look that natural. Okay, environment occlusion is basically works for the environment. If I'm going to turn this on, we're not gonna see any ambient occlusion because this option works on the whole environment to be distributed with this texture. And we can also see if the effect alpha is on, we'll be able to see how nice and thin ambient occlusion gets, because it's now working with the alpha that's been distributed from my cellular map. Okay, another cool option is, let me just turn those guys on and render this image so we will be able to see how ambient occlusion actually works on my model. We can exclude or include objects and enhance. We can, like, for instance, duplicate our texture and enhance on one texture ambient occlusion to work wider, and one to work less, one to work with more accuracy, one to work with less accuracy. So basically, as you see here, we can exclude or include from the same I excluded the glass and this last cube. So basically you see those guys are not actually working or getting any parameters from this VRay Dirt right here. The last option is reflection glossiness. If we want to have blurry reflections or refractions, we can use this option. This option actually works really good with specular maps, and you probably know that the specular maps supposed to have only grayscale, only black and white, and in between the grays it does not have to be on a grayscale, but it always works better when it's working with the grayscale mode. So this is basically refers to your reflection glossiness, to your blurry reflections that your map, that your ambient occlusion VRay Dirt distributes. Okay, let's see what other parameters that we have. I'm going to turn those guys off right here, and we're pretty much going to go back to the previous stage, to the normal stage of being distributed. And as you see here, we get really nice and accurate render with realistic looking concrete. Okay, so this is pretty much it. This is how you work with VRay Dirt and use really cool ambient occlusion in order to enhance photorealistic look to your VRay materials. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this. Post your comment below. This was Alex, your VRay guy.